Hey everybody, Art Burns here. Hope you're having a great day today. So I get to work with a lot of parents, and believe me, there is plenty of need for stress reduction when it comes to parenting. And that is universally true. Parenting can be one of the most stressful endeavors that we can do. And I really enjoy working with parents for a couple of specific reasons that I'd like to share with you as to how they, apply to mindfulness practices in general. So the first thing is that, from my own standpoint, as a parent myself, I have two young children, and as a parent myself, my mindfulness practices and my training that I have gone through, and the changes that I've been able to accomplish in my own, behavior and my relationship to my actions and my relationship to my experience, and on and on and on. These things have helped me be a better parent in ways that I can't even describe. I literally can't even articulate it. I mean, I guess I could, but it'd take way too long than I have in this video. So aside from that, though, one of the most important aspects of mindfulness to me is that as we practice mindfulness, right? And this is something I read. Actually, I bought a book called The Miracle of Mindfulness by Thich Nhat Hanh. And I bought it used. I like to buy most of my books used. Not only do I save a couple dollars, but I also, do my part of, kind of not introducing more stuff into the world. So I enjoy doing that. So I bought this book used, and there was absolutely one little passage, one little paragraph that was highlighted in the entire book, right? And this was it. It's pretty kind of eerie. Thich Nhat Hanh says that when we practice mindfulness, if you're in a family and you're practicing mindfulness, when you have a family and one person practices mindfulness in that family, the rest of the family will automatically become more mindful in time. And that is absolutely something that I've seen in my family, and I've seen in the families of other people who I've worked with as clients, over and over and over again. In fact, it's very, very prevalent. And there's a couple of reasons for that, right? The reasons are that when we are when we practice mindfulness, right, we develop a level of less reactivity, right? Like we don't get so, embroiled in the sort of family dramas that go on, or the dramas in all areas of our lives, right? And when we do, right, we have a tendency to come back to our baseline much faster, right? Like that's one of the qualities, one of the traits of mindfulness. In fact, I did a video about that the other day, I think on Monday, about the traits of mindfulness. So when we do have a reaction, when we snap, when we raise our voice, or react in a way that is uncommon to our new kind of practice, we come back down very quickly. Okay, it's not something where that reaction leads to another reaction, which leads to another reaction, which creates like a whole day or days where everybody's walking on eggshells, and it's all bad moods and stuff like that. No. With mindfulness, we come right back. Right? And so we're able to correct ourselves very quickly. But aside from that, it's also just your general reactions. It's your general level of compassion. It's your general level of patience. It's your general level of acceptance, right? And presence. That this is when when your family starts to feel that coming from you, right? And it doesn't matter what role you play in the family. Believe me, I've worked with mothers and fathers and children who have all influenced their families from wherever they are within that family, kind of structure, right? And so, and again, it becomes because it happens because you're the rest of the people around you, and this does happen also outside of the family. But of course, in the family, it's very dramatic because it's very impactful because you spend so much time around your family, right? But when people sense this patience, this presence, this acceptance, this compassion that's coming from you, right? They also sense that you feel good about it, all right? In my own experience, there was one day a couple of years ago where, my wife was, just having a really hard time. It was a particularly trying day with two young kids, and it happens, and I often say that, like, I did a presentation of this, and the two slides that I used to represent her was a slide of, like, I guess Joan Crawford from the Mommy Dearest movie, right? Like that was her face, like she was just so enraged. Whereas I was like Kermit the Frog sipping the tea. It's like I couldn't have been, more calm if I tried. And at that point during that particular, circumstance of that day, she turned to me and she's like, how do I do this? Just pointing up and down to me, like, how do I get to do this? Because she saw that it wasn't impacting me and it wasn't causing me the suffering that it was causing her. Right, so that is a way in which mindfulness practices can emanate to those around us. Right now, even more importantly, right now, when it comes to being a parent, right, it's all about the kids, right? Like, that's what we're here for. We're here to help our kids grow, to help them develop, to help them to be the best people that they can be. And that leads me into my next point, right, is that as we practice mindfulness, as we train ourselves to live in the present moment, not only does it reduce the stress and reduce the reactivity that we have to everything going on. The reason why a lot of that works, or in addition to how that works, what we're also doing is we're letting go of the outcomes, right? So we're not so like what causes the stress and what causes the anger and what causes all that that turmoil in parenting, right? It's the sense that we're not meeting an outcome that we expect, right? We're not making our kids the kids that we want them to be, that we feel it's our obligation to make them into, right? Well, when we practice mindfulness, when we really devote ourselves and cultivate a habit and a way of being present in the moment, in the present moment, without judgment, what we do is we part of one of the byproducts of this practice is to let go of those outcomes. It's to let go of the sense that like things have to be a certain way, right? And now that doesn't mean that we let things go to crap. It doesn't mean it's like, okay, it doesn't matter, you don't have to brush your teeth, you don't have to, you can eat cookies and ice cream for all your meals and stuff like that. That's not what I'm talking about. In fact, what I'm saying is that when we can let go of the sort of preconceived judgments that we have about things, and the preconceived outcomes that we have about things, or the expectations that we have about things, we can then really focus on the things that actually matter, right? Which are brushing your teeth, eating vegetables, drinking water, not just eating cookies and ice cream and not brushing your teeth and not changing your underwear for weeks at a time, right? Which is what kids would do if they could, right? And so in addition to that, you also get a sense of, just again, there's a certain patience that comes with this work, right? A patience that allows you to understand that everything isn't going to be perfect, and it's not going to be perfect right now. Whatever we want to happen is not necessarily going to happen right now, right? And so as we're living in the present moment and not fixating on some future occurrence that we expect to happen, some kind of event that we expect to happen that we're looking for, right? Like keeping our eyes peeled for, right? When we release that, we live in the present moment, we realize that, okay, there's lots of time. There's lots of time. Even though it does fly by, it still flies by. It flies by a lot less, for somebody who is living in the present moment. But these moments go by quickly. There's no question about that. But when we realize that each present moment is so rich and so full of all of its experiences, we also realize that there are millions of these present moments between us and whatever it is that we expect to happen, right? Whether it's our kids entering college or getting married or having a family of their own, there's millions of these present moments in between now and then. And if we can dwell in these present moments, that's when we can be the most effective for our kids, right? And then that also leads to a subject that I talked about the other day, which is the attunement that we have for children, right? Or we can and ought to, as parents, have with children, right? And I talked the other day how the attunement happens internally. Right, the attunement happens to ourselves first when we practice mindfulness, right? Because we're able to, to really see our emotional experience, outside of that sort of egoic, behavioral kind of thing that we go through, right? Because a lot of times that's what we judge. We judge our behavior more than we kind of examine and become present with our emotional, motivation for our behavior, right? And so that's the same thing applying that principle that we develop for ourselves, it becomes much easier then to apply that to our children and to really attune to them, right? Attune to their emotional needs, attune to their their emotional experience, and their see the world through their eyes. Once you can do that, folks, then everything changes, right? And that's where you become a very important ally to your children for the rest of their lives, right? You provide an emotional, kind of support and assistance, right? As opposed to a tactile or a physical assistance, right? So instead of, and this is where, instead of just getting up and getting the glass of juice for your son or daughter, you inspire them to get the juice themselves and teach them how to do that. That's what's kind of tied into this whole thing that I'm talking about. Of course, that's a very basic example of what I'm talking about, and what I'm really talking about is a very emotional thing, right? But that emotional support that you can give to your children for the rest of their lives into their adulthood, that is going to be so much more valuable than teaching them physical things and kind of operating on the level of correcting their behavior, right? Instead of correcting, I guess what I'm really trying to say is, instead of correcting their behavior, really adjusting the emotional motivation behind the behavior, and maybe not even adjusting, but really bringing their awareness to it and allowing them to adjust it themselves. This is how you're going to raise truly resilient children who are truly comfortable with themselves, comfortable in their own skin, and therefore more likely to succeed in whatever it is that they're trying to do in their lives. So if you'd like to talk about this, if you'd like to talk more about how mindfulness applies to parenting and how it can help become a better parent. I'm not going to teach you how to parent, okay? I don't, I'm not, that's not me, but I'll teach you how to parent from a place of calm presence and focused awareness and the ability to be non-judging and just be present with your kids. So if you'd like to know more about that, please drop me a comment below, send me a direct message, and feel free to share this video with any other parents that you think might benefit from it. Thanks for listening. Wish you well. I'll be back again soon. Take care.